tempting to think of the social contract as a thing that's for the players, that they have to maintain and respect, that they are going to show up on time and prepared, that they are not going to be competitive with the other players, that they are not going to show up with a random new person. Hey, I brought my significant other, spouse, whatever you like, or my child, or my best friend, and it's cool. We'll just make a character real quick. Sorry I didn't tell you that they were coming in advance. Another video. Whatever it is, we do have responsibilities that flow from the table to us. We do have part of the social contract that we have to maintain. In the D&D Dungeon Master's Guide, it says that we are a storyteller, an actor, a designer, and a rules adjudicator, and it's all around having fun at the table. If you ask people online through Reddit or you go see YouTube videos, they will talk to you, including this guy, about how you are supposed to run your game. What you're supposed to do. What is good. You are a storyteller. You're not a storyteller. You should make your own house rules. Go ahead. It's fun. Make it rules as written. That's the best way to do this. Run your own adventures. No, go get pre-published. That's a better way to do it. And that's because that's what was fun for them at their table. I don't even like the word fun in this context. I think of being a dungeon master as being an art. Artist's job is to captivate you for however long we've asked for your attention. And I think the same thing is true of being a dungeon master. However long a game is going to be, 2 hours, 4 hours, I'm there to try to grab your attention and keep you engaged in the game. And there's lots of types of engagement. Sure, fun is a type. The same way playing a Mario Brothers game or going seeing a Pixar or Disney movie is a fun experience. It's funny. It's fun. There's bumpers on it. I'm not going to have to think too deeply, too hard. I'm just going to have a good time. That is fun, and I am engaged. At the same time, I like Dark Souls games. I don't consider those fun. I consider them frustrating. I like going to them knowing that there's going to be a challenge and I'm going to have to dig deep and think about this and figure out how the mechanics of the boss work and how I'm going to do it and go as far as I can, even though I've never beaten a Dark Souls game. I will play every one of them and get frustrated and I will be engaged. I don't know that I'm having fun. Unless maybe you're the let me solo guy, in which case maybe that is fun for you because, wow. There is the theme park, Disneyland, Mario Brothers type game where you might die, but it's only in context of a Mario Brothers. It's really easy to restart. You just, okay, you pop back up, we resurrected you, we did rejuvenation or whatever, and you're back in the game. On the other side is the heavier stuff. From the celestial horror of like a Call of Cthulhu, the gothic horror of a Ravenloft, or the political and backstabbing intrigue of like a Game of Thrones kind of campaign from like a Birthright or something like that. And you're trying to figure out where exactly are our players in this spectrum where they're just uncomfortable enough to be having fun, like a roller coaster. When you get on the roller coaster and you're going up on the edge, you know you're going to have fun, you know you're going to shout, but it is a little bit, okay, we're going over the edge, here we go. But that's not the same for every player. They probably don't all want the same things. Hopefully they want similar things. You could end up with 2 players over here that are really into combat and 2 players that are role players, and they're not even the same. On one side, you have the combat players, and one of them really wants that tactical, almost chess or Final Fantasy Tactics-like combat. On the other side, there's the combat person, but what they really want is action Marvel movie kind of combat, where they're saying, hey, could I swing on this chandelier from the top balcony, drop down, and do a downward thrust like some of the Zelda games? I mean, that's not an attack, but yeah, sure, you can do that, but that's not the rules. And it might annoy this other player over here. On the other side, you've got your role players. And one of them really wants to engage in the world and the world building, but this other person doesn't really care about the world as a character and how they can build their legacy in your world. They care about how you're going to incorporate their backstory into the world. How are you going to do that? And it is your responsibility, you're part of the social contract, to figure out how you're going to fit these all in the right mix. Because every time you satisfy one of these other players, the other 3 players are starting to drift away in their attention. You'll notice this most when you're talking about the difference between the combat players and the role players. They're really into it when they're slaying dragons and killing demons. And you give that to them for 3 adventures. Okay, we're out of the wilderness, we're bringing back our loot from the dragons, and we're going to go into town. And now the role players get to have their fun. They're going to talk to all these different shopkeepers, all these different NPCs that run the town, the captain of the guard, the leader of the city, the governor, the thieves guild. Hey, can I go join those kind of things? And all of a sudden, you'll notice over here that your combat people have brought out their cell phones and they're just starting to stare at it and just drift off into the zone of whatever is up on their TikTok thread. It's going to happen. You just got to figure out a way to minimize it. It's going to be different for your group. Read them, because talking to them is not always enough. They don't always, I don't want to say that they're dishonest. They don't necessarily know what it is that makes them tick. And it is kind of up to us to start to try to figure out what it is so that we can engage them. So that we go, oh, that player never told me that they're really into combat, but I noticed that's where they're into it. This player that is traditionally called just an audience member, they don't really care about the combat. They don't really want to be in the story. They just want to see these other people have cool stories. So if I satisfy them, I'm actually satisfying the audience member. So let's say that you want to play Curse of Strahd, and you sit down and they say, hey, yeah, we want to play Curse of Strahd. Okay, what kind of Curse of Strahd campaign do you want? What kind of horror do you like? And they, no, we want gothic horror. We want proper Bram Stoker's Dracula. And that means that you're anticipating having to play Strahd as a proper villain, as a monster. He is a Machiavellian, sociopathic, narcissistic individual, and he's going to do monstrous, horrible things in that game. So are the other people, because like being in The Walking Dead, the people are the worst monsters. That may not be what they want. You'll know that when they can't stop cracking jokes every time something gets serious and dark and uncomfortable for them. You'll know that when they show up and their character's name is Barty McFly, the Kenku Bard. You'll know that when they decide that they're going to try to romance Strahd and convince him of the error of his ways. And then you're going to be thinking, okay, you didn't really want Bram Stoker's Dracula. You wanted Dracula Dead and Loving It or Twilight. And now you're going to have to judge the campaign into what it is that they actually want, because they're not always honest with themselves, if partially because they don't want to disappoint the other players. You may have a player at the table that does want Bram Stoker's Dracula while the other one wants Twilight. You're also going to have to do this with rules adjudication. Popular ones include long rests and short rests. Do you care about that? Do you care if they take a short rest in the dungeon when there's goblins around the side? Are they going to have to do a random encounter every time they try to do that to discourage them from a short rest? Are you going to care about encumbrance? Do you mind that they're carrying around 20,000 gold, which would weigh a lot, but ignore it. They don't have a bag of holding, but let's not talk about that. What about arrows and quivers? How many arrows do they have left? I grew up caring about that. I like that kind of system where I care about arrows. I care about how many quantities of bat guano I have and fireballs I could cast, that I could roll a nature check and find out that, well, what I really care about is the sulfur. I could scrape that off the well wall or distill well water into getting sulfur. My table would hate that. I do not inflict that upon them because that is a pain that they are not going to enjoy. It's my own special type of OCD character, what's in my character's bag kind of nonsense.
What have I got in my pocket?
Do you want to tinker around with classes to make them more fun for certain players? Take, for example, a sorcerer, and you go, well, the sorcerer only has a limited number of spells, but this player really wants these two spells and they have to pick between them and they're not enjoying that process. Do you take away the fact that sorcerers only get a limited number of spells, or find some other way to allow them to get one extra bonus spell? Because that's taking something from the wizard. The wizard is the one that has unlimited amounts of spells and gets everything. What if your party has both? Does the wizard feel like they had something taken away that makes them special? What about certain archetypes? The Beastmaster archetype for the Rangers is typically considered a very low power, underwhelming version of that class. And you have a player that really wants to play that version. They've seen a lot of Drist and they want to play Drist with Guinevere. And okay, but this is not going to feel good playing with the other players. So you need to somehow figure out a way to buff this character and give them special rules so that they're going to have fun and engage with the game through their character's lens? Can you find a way to do that without feeling like you took away from the rogue or the monk or whatever other players are at your table, and honor what it is that they see about their character without it? Because you could stick with rules as written. Is it really worth it to go, no, but the book says that that's the way that this is? And the player may go, I don't really care what the book says. I care that I'm not having fun, that I'm not engaged in this game because my character stinks compared to the warrior that's over there doing 80, 100, however much damage, and the wizard that's lobbing fireballs every time. I don't feel like my character is powerful. I don't care what the book says. I don't feel like this is fun. Storytelling and acting are kind of intertwined in my mind. You'll usually find that groups that really like one like the other because they're into the role-playing aspect of it. There are some groups that don't want it. They really don't care. They don't want to care about the moral quandary of killing an orc. They don't want to care about the politics of your world. They just want to kill some stuff. They've had a hard day at work. They are very young often, and they just want to have the adventure of killing monsters, collecting loot, and moving on with their lives. And it can be easier or harder depending on who you are. If you're a dungeon master that really likes building the world out and really likes the politics and intrigue, that may not be worth it to you. You may have to go, let's just play Gloomhaven instead. Let's just go do that. Let's play Hero's Quest or something. And that way I don't have to worry about this other stuff and feel disappointed when they're not engaging, when they don't care about the lore and they kill the NPC shopkeeper to steal all their stuff. And I feel like you didn't care about the work that I put into it. There's other groups where they really do care. And if you're not prepared to weave their character into the world, they're going to feel disappointed. Why did I put all this effort into making my character a living, breathing expression of who I am and the way I think and how I think about your world? If you're not going to honor that, they're going to go that mile. You need to figure out if you're a dungeon master that's willing to go along with them on that journey. They want to build in your world. They want to figure out how the different gods are related and how magic works. And when I kill this dragon, I want to cut out its heart and I want to use it as a crystal that I can use to make a magical sword of dragon slaying. Wait, what? With what? Press pause on that and say, cool. Let me go see if there's some options online or somewhere else that I can look up books for this and see what I can get from like DM's Guild or something about harvesting monster parts. And you'll find resources for that. And you don't have to do that work, but you do have to do a little bit of legwork, I guess. So some work to try to meet them where they are or tell them no. It's going to disappoint the player, but it's okay to say, look, it's not the type of game I really want to run. I really want to run hack and slash Conan adventure where we just dungeon delve. Last part is making your players comfortable at your table. Hopefully you're playing with friends, whether that's virtual or in person, and that you know where their comfort level is. There are things about like whether you should use spiders because someone is arachnophobic. I am, but I paint the miniatures and I'll put them on a table because for me, the tradition of spiders, Shelob, Loth, spiders in fantasy go hand in hand. They are one of the primordial fears of people and they make a perfect fantasy monster because they're creepy. But there are other topics that maybe you want to steer clear of. I've talked a few times about my Curse of Strahd campaign, and I think my players would agree that it got really dark and really heavy at times because I knew my players were comfortable enough with it to have a conversation about it in a role-playing game sense, that they know that there's a difference between the game world and reality, and it's not going to bring up any uncomfortable memories, and I'm not going to try to play it for effect. But your players may not be that comfortable enough with it. They may not be comfortable enough with you being the one to deal with it or what the other players are going to do at the table. I am not comfortable playing romance scenes with my players. It's fine if they have a significant other in the game. It's fine if they develop an attachment, but we are immediately shifting away. If you say, hey, I'm kind of interested in that your bard that's playing tonight, can I hit on him? Sure. Roll a charisma check or diplomacy check, see if you like them, and then you go off for the evening and you have fun. That's my line, I guess. That I'm comfortable dealing with it, and that's where my players are comfortable dealing with it. We're not going any further than that because I want them to be able to develop relationships in the game. I run a game where it is a consistent world that goes from campaign to campaign, and your changes to it will matter. Whether you have a family will matter. You could play 3 generations later the child of the NPC and your character that ended up at the end of the campaign. I want that kind of experience, but there's lines, even for me. And that's it. I don't want to deal with off-screen kind of things. I don't even like saying it on YouTube. There you go. Whatever the line is, you need to figure out where their gray space is. In some players, it may be very narrow, where there is no gray space. There is light and dark. I will deal with everything that's over here, but nothing that's over here. Some, they are comfortable in this gray area. They want to be shoved into this gray area because it makes it feel more impactful to them. They're going to engage more with it if the world starts to feel like a place where there are real stakes. Other people, you're going to drive away with that. You're going to have to know your players. It's part of your job. That's part of the social contract. It's also important that you're comfortable with it. So until next time, Dungeon Masters, remember, you're a player too. Try to have some fun.